Once upon a time there was a kingdom far, far away. It was tucked in between the highest mountains in the world and the most fertile land one could ever think of. The king was in his castle, but people rarely saw him because he was angry. You see, the people didn't want him as king anymore, so most of all he wanted to tell them off, just like the statue of the old king. The people of the kingdom were very colorful and very, very poor. Some came from the mountains, others from the lowlands. A few were very rich, but most had to struggle all day, earning practically nothing, because they came from the wrong family, the wrong caste, the wrong ethnic group, or just the wrong part of the country. But now the little kingdom far, far away would have an election which people were all hoping would make their problems disappear, including the traffic jams, so they could live happily ever after. Unfortunately for the people of Nepal, since they're the people we're talking about, this is not really a fairy tale, and there are no good fairies or magic wands. Reality is tough for most Nepalese. 1/3 of the population live below the international poverty line. And even though more and more people move to the cities, the majority are still farmers. The terraced fields with rice, wheat, corn and potatoes may look picturesque, but they're often too small to support an entire family. Life is difficult for us farmers. It's hard to survive. We never have enough food. No matter what we do, we don't have enough. That's just the way it is. Jokana Prasit Gimri and his wife have 7 children, 1 cow and 5 goats. His own fields can support his family for only a few months. The rest of the year he has to work for other farmers, but the work is seasonal and for about 6 months every year he doesn't really have an income. No one looks after us. We have no hope. Jokana Prasit Gimri can neither read nor write, but he's nonetheless going to cast his vote at the election like he did at the previous one. Not because he thinks that his vote will make any difference. Neither the present government or governments to come will do anything for us. We will stay as we are. The parties say we should vote for them, which we do, and they go up, but we always stay here at the bottom. No one cares about the poor. On the opposite end of Nepal's social ladder, we find the owner of this splendid mansion in Kathmandu, Pashupati Rana, the grandson of the last Rana Maharaja, the family that ruled Nepal for 100 years until 1951.
We had a king who was a decorative king. He was kept in a sort of golden cage. And the real business of running the country was done by the Rana Maharajas.
Pashupati Rana is a typical example of the Nepalese elite. A degree from Oxford, several posts in the government, and a large private fortune. He has absolutely nothing to worry about when it comes to caste, family and social position, and he's busy campaigning for the political party he's in charge of. But in spite of it all, he's a strong advocate for including all the people of Nepal into the democratic process.
I've been arguing in favor of inclusion for the last 40 years. Unsuccessfully, true, but finally I think we'll get there.
Even though it might mean that you would have to give up privileges?
Sure. Yeah, whatever you have to do. You know, it's more important that Nepal remains together, that the country becomes stable, than what happens to my fortune. You know?
Unfortunately, only a very few members of the Nepalese elite share his views. The many ethnic minorities, the illiterates, the outcasts and the poor, like our farmer here, have for years been deserted by the politicians, who would rather fight each other for power than solve the many problems of Nepal. The problems led to 10 years of civil war, with a Maoist guerrilla movement fighting against the king, the army and the government. thousands of people were killed. During the war, another catastrophe hit the country. The king, the queen and several other members of the royal family were shot dead by the Crown Prince Dipendra at the royal palace during a family dinner, reportedly because he couldn't marry the girl he loved. The king's brother, Gyanendra, survived the massacre and inherited the throne. But by brutally suspending democracy and assuming sovereign power in 2005, he in reality paved the way for the end of the Nepalese monarchy. For once the political parties could agree on something. They all wanted to stop the king. Together with the Maoists, they forced the king to give up power. And the first decision the newly elected Constituent Assembly will have to make will be historical. They will declare Nepal a republic and abolish the monarchy. The grumpy, power-seeking King Gyanendra looks to be the only sure loser in this election.
The parties have decided that the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly will declare formally Nepal a republic. Then the king will become an ordinary citizen. So that's the other reason this is extremely historic occasion for us, because if you look at Nepal's history, this is the dynasty that actually created Nepal through its conquests 250 years ago. So to take a clean break from the ruling elite family is, I think it's a very big moment.
For the first time in history, the Nepalese people will have the opportunity to write their own constitution.
Neither in the past it has been done, nor in the future it will be done. So it is a historic juncture. So this historic opportunity should be properly used by the people of Nepal.
It is a historic election, but there are still many unknown factors, and an election in Nepal is not the same as an election in Western Europe, for instance.
Don't expect this to be an election like in Denmark or in other parts of Europe. I think this will be more like an election in northern India with low-level violence, intimidation, and there'll be pockets where I think there might have to be re-voting.
There's no assurance that this will be a free and fair election. There is a great deal of violence going on in the country, and the behavior of the Maoists is really quite dangerous. So what will emerge as a result is up in the air.
We are just talking about political situation.
The election is a popular topic on the streets of Kathmandu, also in the motorbike shop. Yes, I intend to vote, but I can't say for which party right now. If I vote, it'll be for the Maoists. Why the Maoists? Well, in this situation, they're the ones I trust the most. The election campaign was colorful and very Nepalese. Many parties obviously believe that blaring slogans from a truck through distorted speakers is the thing to convince the voters. All in all, 54 parties ran in the election, many of them too small to be noticed, or just on the ballot to cater for a specific ethnic group or region of the country. Politics in Nepal are as confusing as the traffic in Kathmandu. There must be some sort of rules, but no one seems to care. The normal labels do not apply to political parties in Nepal. The ultra-conservative party, Nepali Congress, claim themselves to be socialists, while the Communist Party, United Marxist-Leninists, UML, see themselves somewhere in the middle.
We want a balanced approach, no leaning to the extreme left, neither leaning to the extreme right.
Nepalese businessman Rajendra Ketan does not think highly of the politicians.
I think they do not understand the need of the people, the social economic need of the people, the right of 2 meal a day, access to health and education, and more importantly, those who have 2 hands, get them employed. That sense is not there into political level, and that's why the things have never moved.
Mistrust of the old politicians and their parties is widespread. but many of them are still going to be elected, and the new Constituent Assembly will have many of the same old faces.
It is the same old faces, except the Maoists. I mean, they are new, and what they're saying in the speeches is new, and the people, it resonates with some people, saying, oh, at last, someone is, speaking on behalf of us. So even Nepali people who may not necessarily agree with the Maoists and their methods, find them fresh.
The Maoists are the great unknown factor. Not too long ago they were still fighting a bloody guerrilla war. Today they're in the democratic process with everything it takes: music, flags, banners and candidates speaking to the voters, like this election rally in the mountain village of Tatipokiri. The Maoists talk about democracy, but do they really mean it? Well, at this rally the slogans are about revolution, with portraits of Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin and Mao as a backdrop for the candidates. The Maoists' political rivals are particularly worried about the Young Communists League, YCL. They're the more militant wing of the movement, and they have been involved in several violent incidents.
They continue to behave in a manner which is very violent, very, it is as if elections are some kind of a continuity of the guerrilla war that they carried on. They're carrying the tactics of war into election.
A member of parliament from the Nepali Congress Party is in the hospital in Kathmandu after a close encounter with the Young Communists. Maoist members of the YCL attacked us. They used knives, iron bars, bats and guns. The Maoists have a different version of events.
He is lying, he is a big liar, he is a big goon. This man is a very notorious goon, everybody knows that. So that way he killed our cadre, and to hide that he is accusing us. This is the reality. The charismatic leader of the Maoists, Prachanda, is convinced that they will win the election.
We will win the election. This is our belief. We have made a huge sacrifice for the change of this country. Therefore, we believe that we will win the election. But even if we will not win, then we will respect the verdict of the masses. No question, no doubt. But some people think that we will not respect the result or something like that. It is quite fake propaganda, false propaganda.
But his second in command, the more militant Dr. Bhattarai, will not guarantee that the war is over.
No, war can never be of the past. As long as there is class division, as long as there is class exploitation, the various types of discrimination like national discrimination, regional discrimination, gender discrimination, religious discrimination, war can never be over, you see.
Their behavior is so ambivalent that it's very difficult to tell what they're really going to do. Let's hope that they behave in the correct manner, that they accept the result of the elections. But this is a hope. This is not in the range of belief.
The only thing so far preventing the Maoists from taking power by force is the Nepalese army. Many have feared that the army would interfere and maybe even take over control if things got out of hand. But the Army Chief of Staff denies this very strongly. He's not commented on the election or given any interviews, but made an exception for this program. These are the basic rules for Nepalese politicians as he sees them.
First, everybody should not renounce violence publicly, honestly and sincerely. Second, everybody must commit to democratic political system that is acceptable to the people of Nepal and the international community. Third, everybody must commit themselves to free market economy in relation to Nepal. Free market economy, it's a very complex subject. And that's what I said in relation to Nepal. And fourth, everybody must disarm, throw the guns. And they must trust the ballots, not the bullets. The people's mandate.
The army chief is adamant that the army stay out of politics.
This army would remain away from politics, must remain away from politics if the politician wants to have an stabilizing factor for anything unknown, unseen. They need something to fall back on. An army is the only factor on which they can fall back on whenever they need it.
This is also Nepal, even though we're almost in India. The city of Janakpur sits on the flat, fertile plains known as the Terai along the border to India. Approximately half of the Nepalese population live in this low-lying part of the country called Madesh. They call themselves Madeshis, and they have for years felt oppressed and discriminated by the rulers in Kathmandu.
This has annoyed quite a lot of the Madhesi people now. So they are fighting for their right. They are not asking anything more actually. They are just want to go on equal footing.
Militant movements fighting for independence in Madesh have created a sense of fear and instability, especially when they declare so-called bans, strikes designed to cut off supplies to the north. Today such a ban has hit Janakpur. No cars allowed to drive and shops must be closed. The only transportation left are the rickshaws. This rickshaw driver used to be a day labourer, but he couldn't support his family working other people's fields. I don't have my own land, so I had to rent land from others. I couldn't make enough money, so I quit and changed my job. He rents the bike for 30 rupees a day, half a dollar, but if he works really hard he can make between $3 and $4 a day, which is quite alright in these parts. Like many other Madeshis, he feels that his region is on a collision course with Kathmandu. I wish the Madeshis here in Terai could have independence, but the government will never allow it. Madeshis, Maoists, a terrible economy, inefficient politicians, a desperate king. The list of problems in Nepal is long. It's difficult to see the election solving anything, but the Nepalese are tough as rush, and one has to start somewhere.
Often it has looked very messy. Even in my own articles I've written, and basically to warn people, look, it's getting out of hand, it's getting out of control. So we have to ring the bell, warning bell. But if we step back and look at what we've achieved in the past 2 years, then you have to take some comfort from that this was a major achievement. This is a major change in the way we are going to be governing ourselves. And it has been done without bloodshed. It has been done through resolutions in Parliament. And very few countries can boast of that.
Always, and my prayer with God is that this election must manage the previous conflict and pave the way for peace, stability and development for this country. Only I can pray.
Will the Nepalese live happily ever after, or will they start fighting again over the kingdom? We'll only know when the hard work of drafting a new constitution and forming a new government gets underway. Who knows? Maybe the story of Nepal will have a happy fairy tale ending.
The worst case scenario for me, it would be a Kenya type situation where elections are held, there's all these allegations of rigging, and then the country descends into anarchy and chaos. But I don't think it'll be that bad here.
There could be a much, much worse scenario. But I would really not like to go into that.